Here we are with our Maono PD200W dynamic wireless microphone, the hybrid microphone by Maono, which is both wired and wireless, USB-C as well as XLR. Let's see what we get in an awesome, cute little box here for 99 bucks. Okay, here we are, awesome sauce. We're gonna get right into it with our instructions in your disgusting little mouths out there. In case you want to know what the frequency response is right off of the rip, you're gonna see some crispiness going on up here on the high end. Of course, it's cardioid, that is the bigger polar pattern. And here are some of the general specs. So just looking at this, what stands out to me mostly probably is a couple things. Maybe the max SPDL at 128 dB, which is pretty decent. 60 meter max. You can go pretty far with the distance in wireless mode, and you get approximately 38 hours of RGB and 60 hours of RGB off. 60 hours if you just turn your RGB off. That's a long time. The proof is in the pudding, techies and gamers, what it really sounds like to your ears, sometimes despite what these specs look like. Cracking the box open in your face, techies and gamers, let's just pull our awesome device right out of the box. And just looking at this bad boy, oof, I feel the felt material here. This is a nice felty kind of a pop filter here. This little windscreen, this is kind of smooth and nice. Reminds me of the K688 by Fine. Same kind of material, except you have a plastic base here. And looking at the capsule, just right off the rip, pretty close to the top. The body here is heavy metal. Yes, some type of aluminum alloy material. Nice hard metal. And on the back, we got ourselves USB-C, we got a power and RGB button, and of course a monitoring port right there. 3-pin XLR. Okay, and for the shock mount itself, hard plastic, so you're not getting a metallic shock mount the way you get with the PD300X. This is more like a cross between the 200X and 300X, but this shock mount, it definitely looks a bit better and robust than the 200X shock mount. Okay, nice and shiny. What else we got going on here? Of course, we got our monitor mix button here. Pretty decent low foam click. Very nice. And the mute button, even quieter. Yes, so no longer you have that big clacky sound that you get with the PD200X. And of course, you get your 5/8 tread here. So it just takes one tread for mounting on this particular shock mount bracket here. Okay, pretty cool, pretty nice. I like the body, very crossbreed between the 200X and 300X with a lot of bit more weight than the 200X. Probably not as heavy as the 300X. Okay, USB-C to USB-A, and of course it converts to USB-C to USB-C. Not that I want to really use this because this is the hybrid, so I really want to just go wireless with this device. So we're not even going to use this right now. Okay, what do we get in our little receiver accessory box? We get our USB-C receiver here to go wireless. Yep. And I see there is a 1 and a 2, so you can connect up to 2 microphones to this receiver. This is really in case your device that you're connecting your microphone to does not have USB-C. It has a USB-A connector. Rubber bands in case your shock mount loses one of its rubber bands and it breaks. You got a couple of rubber band backups for your shock mount. Also at the bottom of the box, we have our tabletop stand, which I've kind of started growing accustomed to using. Nice heavy weight, metal build, right? Rubber base to mitigate scraping your desktop. And then our little tabletop stand arm, which does in fact extend here, I believe. All right, so you can just unscrew this and you get a little bit of an extension. So get a nice decent size and height. It is all metal except for this piece here, which is plastic. Screw here is plastic. Okay, and of course it supports both 1/4 inch and 5/8. Easiest thing in the world to set up. You just screw it onto the base like so. I said screw it. Wow, how much of screwing do I have to do here? Screw, screw, screw. Okay, pretty snug, and we're going to use this bad boy right now. Let's go. All right, techies and gamers, here we are with our Maono PD200W hybrid dynamic microphone. Plug and play. I just plugged it in and it works wirelessly. That's right. So what you're listening to right now is wireless. And well, I've actually had a chance to demo this device in length, and the wireless works really good. Minimal lag noticing when you're speaking and the time sync with your video. So pretty good. And the stand right here is actually quite tall. So, and well, my table's a little bit high, but even without extending it, it's pretty tall. So If you had a lower table, you can definitely get this bad boy pointing up 14 inches or more. What do you think of this microphone, techies and gamers? I know it sounds good because I've been testing it for some time, and I just thought that you needed to know what's the latest and greatest with Maono out here. Aside from the PD300X and the 400X, this is probably, I would dare say this is their flagship mic because you have lots of ways you can use this, wired or wireless or via XLR, USB-C, Monolink app application. Tons of stuff you can do with this microphone. Okay, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The quality out of box is straight up podcast quality audio. As far as the monitoring is concerned, directly connected, pretty much real time. Yes, it sounds pretty good. I would say there's probably like a couple of milliseconds of delay. Barely noticeable, but my ears are hypersensitive to it, so I noticed the littlest of things. Sounds pretty decent, and you definitely want to talk off access because I do notice some sibilance. Plosives, Peter Piper picked a pack of Pepsis, popped them, poured them into a pitcher profusely. Decent control with plosives. Sibilance, Caesar ate a salad by the seashore with Susan in the store. Definitely getting that sibilance in your audio. So right here, we are wireless and we are going off of flat EQ, right? No modifications change. You see the gain here. I just dropped it down on a hardware level. So when you turn the gain down here, you're going to see that it actually jumps in increments, and you'll see the increment jump that it does jump here. All right, these are the basic scene settings, techies and gamers. First things first, what I always like to do with new devices is check for the firmware updates. And let's see what we got going on here. Am I up to date? No update. You are on the latest and greatest firmware right out of box. Fantastic. This thing has some serious off access. So once you get away from the front of the capsule, you'll hear that drop off. About Maono, no software or hardware updates. I'm all up to date here. So always be sure to check that. What do you think of this new mute button? Do you hear a loud click in the audio? I hear a soft click, but I don't know how it sounds in playback. What I hear here probably is not going to sound in my recording or stream probably. Okay, so that's the quality in your nasty little mouth. Noise cancellation. Right off the rip, first page on your basic tab, we have some noise cancellation options. Let's try it out. Turning it on is going to automatically set it to slight. Oh, and I see the LED on the mic turns green. Going over to moderate. Ooh, that's harsh. I just heard everything just click like A and C in my ears. Okay, I don't hear the fans or anything else, and my audio seems to sound okay. How does it sound when I get back here? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would go with moderate because sometimes my fans kick up and my HVAC kicks up, and I want to just keep that stuff out of my audio. And aggressive is going to be pretty aggressive. You got to be careful with that aggressiveness. As soon as I turn around, your audio probably going to get kicked out. So aggressive is technically made for like very loud environments, dogs and ambulances in your backyard because you shot the dog wet. And when you do that, you have to kind of just be up on the mic so that way you get your audio. You don't get lost when you go away from the mic. Okay, so pretty cool. I wish they did have the slider that they have with some of the other mics to kind of granularly control. Did I say that right? Granularly. So let's get to the meat of what this application and this microphone has the potential for doing for you on a serious professional level. Jumping into our parametric EQ options. I got a comment today. I don't know if you're watching this video. Someone didn't really like this parametric EQ for whatever reason because, well, it's not as simple as just straight up having preset bands set for you where you can just slide the sliders up and down across, right? 3 bands or 10 bands. I think they had like up to 7 bands or something like that on the older version of the Monolink app. Here you have 5, right, as a parametric, and you have the high pass and low pass filters. This is kind of more for a professional EQ standard right here with a parametric. There's more control, more features, more things you can do with your band. You can move them all over the grid here. You can change the parameters of each of these EQs to make it sharper or more wider open. For these EQs, you have to like kind of drop this down and you have to add one to your original because you can't modify the presets that are already built in here. So to do that, you have to create one based off of the preset that's set there. So this is your flat EQ. We'll name it, provided that I got my keyboard somewhere in my life, we'll just name it test for now because I'm probably not going to keep it. I just want you to see what it does. right? Test, then you notice the line turns green. So this is something, right? You can't adjust the preset that's built into the software. It maintains its built-in presets, but you can create different EQs based off of all of these presets. Okay, and build on it. If you like it, but you want to make a minor tweak, you can build off of the preset that's already set there. Pretty cool. Okay, so you sibilance, right? I can kill off some of that sibilance and could a little bit of a low pass filter there, and I can get rid of those S's that are destroying my eardrums. And low rumble, right? You typically want to do a little bit of both of these depending on your microphone. So this one doesn't really have a lot of low end, a lot of bass. So you're good with that. But if you wanted to introduce some low end, you can definitely bump that up like that, and you get some nice smooth bass ASMR kind of bass levels, right? I like that low end introduction there. Sounds pretty good. You can bring up your high ends just a little bit here. Make your voice nice and bright and open. And testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, you can make it nice and bright and still kill off some of that sibilance. And at the bottom here, you notice you have some reverberation. If you notice, you can just click that and it takes you to the first level of reverb, which is, it's already pretty high. But then you have 10 levels of reverb. You can just kind of cycle through all 10. If you go to the top one, wow, a big cavernous reverb special effect if you wanted that in your life. Okay, let's just go back and turn that off. And then you can reset it, of course. You have more, you can export it to a file, so on and so forth, or you can copy this configuration, right, and then paste it somewhere else. For example, we have podcast. This is the podcast preset. Pretty nice. I do hear some low end introduced and my sibilance is back up. Brings down a little bit of that mid tone though, but introduces a lot of bass. Next preset, game. Game 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a game 1 and game 2. And what do you think of this? Audio quality drops off a lot of that low end, so you lose a little bit of that bass. And it brings up the mid tone, so it's like a presence boost kind of EQ setup, and it drops off the high end. So not necessarily low pass filter. It's more like a shelf they got set up here, which just kind of goes out like that and drops down that high end, which sounds okay. This is great for talking, good for ear fatigue if you're doing like, I feel like this game 1 is probably better for podcasting than the podcast EQ. But okay, let's go to game 2. Ooh, wow. It really drops off a lot of that low end over here. So you're going to get no low end rumble or even like a lot of bass. If your mic is boomy, that's going to cut that off. And a little bit of the high end over here. Sibilance is pretty okay on the control. Okay, I like this profile. This is not bad either. I would take this and just kind of make a new one, right? And then just like EQ a little bit more just to make it a little bit better. Bring that up a little higher for more higher brightness in your voice. Let's go over to Sing. Whoa, Sing introduces some pop filter. For whatever reason, they threw Sing. If you wanted to do like karaoke, you got a little bit of a pop with reverb and a specific EQ profile. And it actually brought up that brightness. Is there a secondary? There's folk singing. Okay, lower reverb and a different profile, more presence boost. Okay, sounds okay if you wanted this effect. And then we have lights. Cool thing about the app is that you can customize your lights. You can totally turn off your lights if you don't want it on. You'll still see the light of your knob where you can control your monitoring and gain. But if you wanted to turn off your RGB ring, you can do that. Fixed. So you can do a fixed color. You can do any one of these fixed colors. You can do breathing, which will breathe between with the same color, right? Choose blue or any of these colors here. And of course, loop is going to loop through all of the colors you got going on here in kind of like a RGB rainbow color. And then you can control the brightness. So sometimes this is an issue where mics, RGB or any kind of RGB is just, it's not bright, but bright enough that when you look at it on camera, on recording stream, it looks like it's white. Let's see what this bad boy sounds like in XLR. Let's make a switch. All right, Techies and Gamers, here we are with the PD200W hybrid in XLR mode. Yes, I had to drop the gain down because it was pretty robust. This is the quality you're gonna get in case you're wondering what I'm using to monitor and test XLR. I'm using the Maono AME2 Gen 2, which comes with the 2 XLR ports on the top. I like this mixer because it has a lot of features. You can control EQ on this mixer and a bunch of other settings. No noise suppression. And I noticed that it's doing an okay job with killing off some of that noise. Can you hear it? I don't hear anything. Okay. But we can make this sound quite different. This is what it sounds like normally. Not a lot of low end, but you can definitely bump up some of that bass to get a richer bass in your voice with this mixer. You can also bump up the mid-tone to bring in some more vocal presence and brightness to your voice. And you can definitely bump up that high end to make it sound nice and crispy. This is probably too crispy. Let's drop it down a little bit. And you can get a nice on-the-fly EQ if you're streaming live and you feel like there's just too much sibilance. You don't want to go into some software setting or something. You can just drop the high end or bring the low end up if you like. And what do you think of this XLR quality? I think it sounds fantastic and it is pretty rich in your ears. Will I use XLR over USB-C? Well, I have some thoughts about it. So let's just get to the conclusion right now. There you have it, Takers and Gamers, the PD200W hybrid microphone. USB-C, XLR, as well as wireless into your Mac, your Windows, your console. A lot of nice features you can set with this microphone. A lot of nice features included, including a stand here. For me, I use it on my desktop when I work from home or create other content just like this on a stand. And I like it on a stand because I can move it around if I wanted to, like such, and keep the nice vocal presence. So that way when I get fidgety, because I get fidgety a lot sometimes, if you've noticed, I can keep the microphone in the correct proximity and I won't get lost anywhere. And it gives my hands something to do. Sometimes your hands are just like kind of idle and you want to move them a lot like I do sometimes. It does a good job at not introducing noise. Maybe now because it has a cable and it's banging, but do you hear any noise? Pretty quiet, right? With some minor noise suppression going. Overall, what I think about the audio quality is it's really good. It's not as professional sounding as maybe the 300X for like singing in XLR especially, but it's just right there. It's damn near close. Pretty nice. And it doesn't have a lot of low end, but it does a great job with everything else, right? And you can introduce some low end with like a mixer like I have right here or through the Maono Link app. And you can do quite a few fantastic things with the Maono Link app when it comes to the parametric EQ. If for those of you that like the parametric EQ, very granularly control very specific frequencies and control the bell curves going in between frequencies, make it nice and tight. Drop down a frequency sound off because it's creating a noise or distortion or like a fan noise that's prominent in your room. You can kind of control that with your EQ. Great for singing. Yep, the parametric EQ is probably a better EQ setup for singing and voiceovers because of that granular control. Quality build in terms of hardware, everything is nice. The PD200X up to the 300X, the quality was decent, except for the 200X, the buttons were sus. Too much noise on those. Stand, I like the stand. I'm becoming more and more of a stand man. What? Depending on my scenario, I use the stand a lot. And if you're wireless with the stand, well, I mean, you got to work on your arms, which I've been doing. It's a little bit heavy, but if you want to just kind of talk and carry, it works pretty good and it's fine unless you're going to talk for 2 hours and your arm just starts getting fatigued from the weight. This is pretty heavy. Okay, if I were to use this microphone particularly, I would use it more in USB. Yes, over XLR. I've been a big XLR proponent over the years because it's just so open and crispy and I like tweaking and modifying and making very specific sounds. But in USB-C now with EQ on the fly live EQ application, you can make it sound just like an XLR. Yep, noise cancellation and the whole nine, parametric EQ, and make this guy customized to make it sound just the way you like in USB. Overall, I got to give this mic a nice flying pass on the Tech Toys and Gaming channel. That's really all I got about this microphone. If you're interested in a microphone, the links are in the description. Get yourself a little bit of a discount, courtesy of yours truly and Maono, to save yourself 10%. Maono also has another new microphone, the DM40 Pro condenser microphone, which allows you to sound like someone else. It's a complete voice changer and it has a lot of free voice changers included with it. And well, if you want to see a review of what that potential microphone is and what it can do for you, check out the link right here. It'll take you straight to that review, and I go through all the steps of what the sound sounds like with the microphone and the AI voice changers. Pretty cool device. That's my second go-to outside of this. All right, and with that, I'll see you in that video later.